My name is Sally Quinn, and at 24, I never imagined my college graduation day would be my sweetest revenge. Standing beside my younger sister Chloe in matching caps and gowns should have felt like a family victory, but it wasn't. It was my quiet, calculated revenge. The kind you don't scream about, you earn it inch by inch over years of being underestimated. Before I reveal what made my parents' smiles freeze in front of hundreds at our graduation, let me know where you're watching from in the comments, and hit that like button if you've ever had to fight twice as hard for something that came easily to someone else. The auditorium went still when my name was announced. Valedictorian of the School of Engineering, Sally Quinn. Applause stalled mid-motion. Chloe's camera dipped slightly, and on the projection screen behind me, 10 feet tall, the words appeared in bold. From waitress to CEO, the story behind Node Clock. A beat of silence. A collective intake of breath. My parents' smiles froze instantly. Chloe turned to me confused. Her jaw hung slightly open. For the first time in my life, every eye in the room was looking at me. And I didn't look away. They had come to celebrate Chloe. They thought she'd be the highlight. They didn't know I was the keynote. The last time the four of us were in a room this formal, it was the night we opened our college acceptance letters. We had both been accepted into the University of Washington, Chloe, into the College of Arts and Media, and I into engineering. I remember the champagne popping. I remember Chloe crying tears of joy. I remember my father beaming. I also remember that none of it was for me. When I opened my letter, there were no cheers, just a distracted nod from Dad. Good for you, Sal. Can you help Chloe draft her housing essay later? That night, they told me they'd only be covering tuition for one of us. It just makes more sense to invest in Chloe's future, Mom said, slicing strawberries into a crystal bowl. You're more practical. You've always been independent. You'll figure it out. I nodded. Then walked to the sink, rinsed the knife, and made a silent vow they would never make me feel like an afterthought again. The days that followed weren't glamorous. They were exhausting. I waited tables at night and took early morning shifts cleaning offices. I studied in the break room. I coded in the corners of student lounges. Sleep was rationed, time was currency. But I kept my grades at a 4.0 every single semester. On Sundays, I walked across town to Aunt Vivian's. Her kitchen always smelled like bergamot and quiet understanding. She never said she was proud of me, not in the hollow way people toss out praise. She simply asked what I was building. I'm not just learning engineering, I told her once. I'm learning how to be too good to be ignored. She smiled, poured more tea, and said, "Then make sure when the moment comes you're standing where they can't look away." I thought of that moment as I stood at the podium, looking out over the sea of frozen faces. Chloe's lips were trembling. My father's smile was stuck halfway like a glitch in a loop. My mother blinked twice like she had misread the screen. But there it was in bold: Helvetica founder and CEO Sally Quinn. Behind me, the audience erupted in applause. It wasn't just polite, it was real, raw, earned. And suddenly I wasn't the girl in the corner anymore. I was in the moment. It had taken 4 years, thousands of silent hours, countless ignored emails, and family dinners where I was invisible. But now they couldn't unsee me if they tried. I don't remember the exact moment I realized I was invisible in my own home. Maybe it was the year I got straight A's and no one said a word, while Chloe's B- in French earned her a chocolate cake and a photo on the fridge. Or maybe it was earlier when I fell off the monkey bars and scraped both knees crying on the sidewalk, and Mom told me to "be strong, honey," while she rushed inside to find Chloe's lost headband. In our family, love was currency, and Chloe had all the credit. She was the masterpiece they never stopped polishing. Private piano lessons by third-grade summers at art camp, and a Nikon DSLR for her 13th birthday so she could explore her eye for beauty. I once asked for a coding book. I got a secondhand copy with a coffee stain on the cover and a post-it that read, "Have fun." I was 12 when I overheard my mom on the phone with her sister. "Chloe's just so special. Sally's solid. She's dependable, you know, not a star, but steady." That night, I looked in the mirror for a long time, wondering what I would have to break inside myself to become a star. Dad was quieter in his bias. He'd forget me. Literally. One time, he picked Chloe up from rehearsal and drove right past my middle school where I waited on the curb in the rain. No call, no apology. Just a shrug the next morning. "I thought you had a ride." Even our dinners reflected the imbalance. Chloe got her favorite lasagna every other week. I hated ricotta. No one noticed. Not once. I retreated into numbers. Numbers were clean, honest, and impartial. A 4.0 GPA didn't change its value depending on who earned it. Equations didn't need to be charmed, they just needed to be solved. Every Sunday I escaped to Aunt Vivian's. She never coddled me. She offered strong tea a straight back, and one merciless truth at a time. They won't see your worth until someone else puts a price on it, so make yourself expensive. That was Vivian, sharp as vinegar, steady as stone. She once told me, Chloe's a song, you're an algorithm, different music, same worth, don't forget that. In high school I joined the robotics club DECA and the engineering mentorship program. All things my parents couldn't pronounce, let alone understand. They asked zero questions, but when Chloe got a part in the spring musical they bought her new shoes, a curling iron, and front row seats. I stayed up late building a prototype for a scheduling app that would later form the backbone of Node Clock. I presented it at a state fair and won. First place. My school printed an article in the newsletter. My parents didn't mention it, but Vivian taped it to her fridge. Senior year, my days were a grind. Class shift at the diner, study, sleep if I was lucky. My manager once offered me a full-time job. I said no. I had a business to build. Meanwhile, Chloe was taking a gap semester to find herself in Italy. She sent postcards of wine country and selfies in Florence. Mom posted them all over Facebook, our little explorer. I sent an update about my dean's list honor. No likes, no comments. But it wasn't just about attention. It was about investment. Chloe needed a new laptop for photo editing. Done. I patched mine with duct tape and saved tips to buy a refurbished one. When it came time to submit college applications, we both applied to the University of Washington. We both got in. Different departments, same school. They celebrated Chloe's letter with champagne, mine with silence. Dad said, well, you always figure things out. And then came the decision that cemented everything. They would only pay for Chloe's tuition. Mom's words were so casual, I almost missed the blow. We just think it's more important to support Chloe's path. You're the resourceful one. You'll manage. I didn't cry. I just nodded. Then walked upstairs and opened a new spreadsheet labeled Plan A Independence. Looking back now, I think that moment in the kitchen watching Mom frost a cake for Chloe while barely registering my acceptance was the final nail. It didn't hurt like betrayal. It hurt like confirmation. At college, I carried more than textbooks. I carried proof. Every shift, every exam, every hour I coded Node Clock, while the world slept, it all counted. Not toward their approval. That ship had sailed, but toward mine. And maybe that's what made the silence at graduation feel so loud. They finally saw me, and it terrified them. But it was never about revenge. It was about becoming undeniable. College wasn't the beginning of Node Clock, but it was the forge that shaped it. My first week at the University of Washington, I walked into the engineering lab with a backpack held together by safety pins and a chip on my shoulder. Most people were there to build resumes. I was there to build proof. I wasn't just trying to graduate, I was trying to outrun every label my parents had etched into me. Solid, dependable, not a star. Those words echoed in my head each time I typed out a new line of code at 2 a.m., each time I picked up an extra shift to buy parts for my prototype, each time I saw Chloe's weekend Instagram stories from rooftop parties I couldn't afford to attend. The earliest version of Node Clock started as a side project for a systems architecture class. I'd noticed how overwhelmed students were with juggling assignments, labs, work shifts, and mental health. What if we could build a scheduling algorithm that didn't just remind you of deadlines, but adapted to your emotional bandwidth? I didn't say this out loud to anyone at first. People already saw me as intense, driven, quiet. It wasn't cool to talk about burnout when you hadn't made it yet. But then there was Aiden. He was a grad student in the human-centered design program, the kind of person who could make you forget you hadn't slept in 40 hours. We met when I accidentally short-circuited a shared lab monitor during finals week. He looked up from his notes, blinked once, and said, "Most people wait until after graduation to sabotage university equipment. Bold choice." He made me laugh. I hadn't realized how long it had been since someone did. Aiden wasn't like the others. He didn't talk to me like I was a machine. He asked why I was building what I was building. What problem does it solve? Why it mattered to me. When I told him about the app idea, how it could predict stress patterns and dynamically adjust academic priorities, he didn't blink. He leaned forward and said, "That's not a class project, that's a company." It was the first time someone other than Vivian had looked at me and seen more than resilience. He saw intention. We started building the prototype together. He helped with UX design and networking. I handled the architecture, the back end, and the logic trees that kept me up at night. We'd spend hours in the lab, fingers stained with coffee and whiteboard markers, speaking in a language no one else around us seemed to understand. And maybe for the first time, I didn't feel like I needed to justify my ambition. Vivian kept cheering from the sidelines. She sent homemade meals in Tupperware labeled fuel. She'd email links to startup incubators and TED Talks at 4 a.m., just in case you need a spark, she'd write. And when I told her about Aiden, she simply said, "Just make sure he sees you, not just what you're building." But not everything was code and connection. Chloe was still on campus, floating through classes like she was enrolled in a lifestyle brand. She had a new portfolio every semester funded by mom and dad, each project more curated than the last. Once I bumped into her at the campus bookstore. She barely looked up. "Oh, hey, are you still working at that cafe?" I told her I was working on a startup. She blinked. "Is it like a real one?" It was always like that. A slow dismissal, a microcut, bleeding invisible. But I didn't correct her. I just let her walk away. Because I knew. And soon, so would everyone else. By junior year, NodeClock had traction. We were running private beta tests with over 500 users. Students were improving their time management, mental health resources were integrating our app, and a tech blogger had written a small blurb titled, "A Startup That Actually Gets Burnout." I printed it and taped it inside my closet, just above a spreadsheet titled Funding Targets. Meanwhile, back home, no one asked. Not even once. Dad would call sometimes to say, "How's school? Chloe says it's cold in her dorm." I'd say I was fine. Because I was building something they couldn't diminish. Then came the pitch competition. We were up against MBA candidates, seasoned founders, and kids with last names that opened doors. Aiden and I rehearsed for weeks. I practiced my pitch in empty lecture halls and bathroom mirrors, even in the walk-in freezer at the diner between shifts. When the day came, my blazer was secondhand, but my voice was sharp. We won. First place, $25,000 in seed funding, an invitation to join an accelerator. I walked out of that hall with my hands shaking and my heart steady. Later that night, I called Vivian. She didn't say congratulations. She said I never doubted it. Then silence. Then, make them watch. So I did. By senior year, NodeClock was no longer just a proof of concept. It was a company. I filed the paperwork between classes. I wrote the terms of use while waiting for the bus. I was tired, but I was on fire. And when the valedictorian list came out, I didn't tell anyone, not even Aiden. I wanted them to hear it the way I had lived it, sudden, undeniable, and impossible to ignore. And so when that screen lit up on graduation day and my name echoed across the auditorium, it wasn't just about a speech. It was about arrival. And I hadn't brought a spotlight. I became one. I still remember the first dinner back home after my junior year. NodeClock had just secured a beta partnership with 3 local businesses, and I'd been invited to present at a regional tech incubator. It felt like momentum finally, like the gears were turning slowly but surely. Mom made lasagna again, Chloe's favorite, as usual. I sat at the dinner table with my laptop bag still slung over my shoulder. No one asked where I'd come from or what I'd been working on. Instead, the conversation circled around Chloe's new photography exhibit. "She's going to showcase at the Westlake Gallery," Mom beamed, refilling Dad's wine glass. "That place has real exposure." "Isn't that amazing, Sal?" I nodded and offered a tight smile. "That's great, Chloe." Chloe turned to me, her tone light but edged. "So, what's your project again? That app thing." "It's a scheduling platform for businesses," I said, measuring my words. "It just landed its first batch of paying clients." Dad didn't even look up from his steak. "Well, as long as you're not burning yourself out." You're not trying to compete with Google or something, right? Chloe laughed. I mean, that'd be cute. It was meant as a joke, maybe. But I felt it like a thumb pressing just slightly harder on an old bruise. That was the night I realized I would never win their respect in the way I'd imagined. Not through conversation, not over dinner. I'd have to build something so solid, so visible, so impossible to ignore, it would speak louder than any seat at their table ever could. That summer, while Chloe backpacked through Spain and Mom updated her status with every photo I built, I worked out of a borrowed co-working space above a laundromat. I slept with my laptop next to my bed. Aiden joined officially as co-founder. He brought the user interface magic I lacked, and a kind of grounded optimism I didn't know I needed. Your silence is loud, he told me once after a pitch meeting where I let a potential investor finish condescending through his entire script before I calmly pulled out a signed contract with his competitor. I think you terrify them in the best way. I smiled. But even Aiden didn't know the truth. I wasn't trying to be terrifying. I was trying to be undeniable. A few weeks before senior year, Node Clock won the regional startup grant. $10,000. Validation. I didn't call home. I knew what I'd hear. That's nice. Did you see the new photos Chloe took of the vineyard? So instead, I called Aunt Vivian. She didn't gasp or cry. She just said, "Good. Now make them regret every seat they didn't offer you." Senior year was war. Not loud, not violent, but 1,000 small battles. Sleep versus code. Doubt versus delivery. There were nights I crashed in the library between classes clutching energy bars and spreadsheets like they were survival gear. Node Clock kept growing. By the time finals rolled around, we had 12 active business users, a clean runway, and 3 new hires ready to onboard post-graduation. The only thing left was the cap and gown. I debated not inviting them. My parents. Chloe. But then I thought of something Aunt Vivian once said. You don't build the stage to keep people out. You build it so they have no choice but to watch. So I sent the invites. And on graduation day, as I stood at the podium watching their faces crack under the weight of what they never believed I could be, I realized this wasn't a twist. It was a reckoning. And the table they never saved a seat for me at, I was about to replace it with a boardroom. A week before graduation, Chloe knocked on my apartment door. Not texted, not called, showed up standing in my doorway in a linen jumpsuit clutching a manila folder and looking more anxious than I'd ever seen her. I blinked. Everything okay? She gave me a tight smile. Can I come in? I stepped aside. My place was a small studio-sized, no real living room, but clean, organized, and mine. Node Clock had just onboarded its 15th client. Aiden and I had a call with a potential seed investor the next morning. I had a stack of laundry in the corner and a cold leftover stir-fry on the stove. None of it seemed to matter now. Chloe walked in like she didn't know how to sit in a room without being the center of it. She perched on the edge of my desk chair and held the folder out like it was radioactive. I need your help with something, she said. I raised an eyebrow. What kind of help? It's my graduation speech. I was chosen to speak for our department, the arts and media one. I thought maybe you could, I don't know, give it a polish. I stared at her. Not because the request was shocking. Chloe had always turned to others to fill in the hard parts. But because for once, she looked small, unsure. Why me? I asked not unkindly. She shrugged. You're the best writer I know. And I guess I thought you'd understand what I'm trying to say. What are you trying to say? She paused. For the first time in a long time, she didn't have a ready answer. Her voice was softer when she spoke next. I don't know. I guess I thought this speech would feel like a crown. But now that I'm trying to write it, it feels more like a mirror. And I don't really like what I see. I looked at her. Looked at her. My sister, the golden girl, the one with the curated life and the effortless charm. But under the polish, there were cracks. Maybe they'd always been there. Maybe I'd just been too tired, too hurt to see them. I took the folder, opened it, read the draft. It was fine. Polished, safe, empty. You want real, I asked. Or flattery real? So I gave her real. I cut the cliches. Added a story about failure, her failed portfolio review sophomore year, that she never told our parents about. I kept the part about finding your voice, but reframed it, made it about trying not arriving. She watched me work in silence. When I finished, I handed it back. Her hands shook a little. "Thank you," she said. "This is better." "No," I said gently. "This is honest." She lingered. Her eyes darted around the apartment, landing on the Node Clock logo taped above my desk. "Is that what you've been building all this time?" "Yeah." "And you're the CEO now, like it's real?" I nodded. Chloe sat back, visibly processing. "Why didn't you ever tell me?" I gave a small, tired smile. "I did. You just weren't listening." To her credit, she didn't deny it. She just looked down at her lap. "I used to think you were cold," she said quietly. "But I think you were just trying not to shatter." I didn't know what to say to that. She stood, tucked the folder under her arm. "You're gonna do great, Sal. Like really great." "Thanks." She left without another word. I closed the door behind her and leaned against it, the echo of her voice still soft in the room. That night, I revised my own speech. I made it sharper, clearer. Not just about success, but about survival, about becoming. The kind of story no one claps for in the middle, only at the end. The Monday after graduation, while most students were nursing hangovers or packing up their dorms, I was in a blazer standing in the marble lobby of Bexley Capital's downtown office. I'd earned the meeting through sheer persistence, 6 cold emails, a LinkedIn pitch deck, and a chance encounter with one of their junior associates at a startup panel months ago. He'd remembered me because I asked better questions than the panelists. Bexley wasn't just another VC firm. They were known for two things: brutal due diligence and betting early on winners. Their portfolio included 2 unicorns and 1 AI firm that had just gone public. If Node Clock was going to leap beyond bootstrap and scrap mode, this was the shot. I stood across from the partners, a trio of men in pressed shirts and expensive watches, who didn't offer smiles, just silence and a single nod. "Begin." I didn't flinch. I didn't fidget. I projected the same calm I had at my family's dinner table, the kind forged from years of being ignored. Node Clock solves the pain point most small to mid-sized businesses don't know they have: time fragmentation. I began. "We've built a platform that integrates shift scheduling, task management, and internal communication all in one place." One of the partners leaned back, skeptical. "There are already tools for that. What makes yours different?" I clicked the remote. The slide changed. "We don't require a dedicated operations manager. Our interface is idiot-proof. A barista can schedule a team meeting with 2 taps. A florist can assign weekly goals from their phone. And we're seeing a 93% retention rate after 3 months." Aiden was behind me, manning the demo. His steady hand on the mouse was the only sign of movement. "And revenue. We're at $4,200 monthly recurring, 12 active clients, 3 contracts pending, all bootstrapped, no outside funding, no debt." That got a glance. The oldest partner, a man with silver hair and a reputation for killing founder dreams mid-sentence, finally spoke. "You built this while in school, while working nights, and carrying a 4.0. A long pause. Then he nodded. "They gave us 15 minutes. We stayed for 40. By the end of it, they asked us to send updated financials and cap tables. No promises, but no brush-offs either. For a firm like Bexley, that was the equivalent of a wink." As we rode the elevator down, Aiden grinned. "You killed it." I exhaled slowly. "They didn't say no." Which is the closest thing to a yes you'll get in round 1. That week we met with 2 more firms. One passed, one expressed serious interest. Word began to spread. Chloe texted me midweek, "Saw you on Tech Track. That's wild. Congrats." I typed back, "Thanks." Nothing more. Because it wasn't just wild. It was earned, and it was only the beginning. The real pitch wasn't to investors. It wasn't even to the public. It was to myself. For years, I had measured success by the inches I gained out of invisibility. Now I needed a new metric. Not just survival, not just recognition, but impact. And it was finally within reach. It was a Saturday afternoon when Chloe showed up at my office. I wasn't expecting her, certainly not at the co-working space downtown, where Node Clock had just upgraded to a shared suite with glass walls and our name frosted on the door. I was reviewing financials when I saw her reflection in the glass behind me, holding a coffee she hadn't yet decided whether to offer or keep. "Hey," she said softly. I turned slowly, more curious than surprised. "Hey." She stood there awkwardly scanning the sparse space, the standing desks, the stacked UX whiteboards, the bookshelf filled with business books and tech manuals. Not exactly an art gallery. "This place is cool," I gave a non-committal nod. "What brings you here?" She shifted, uncomfortable. "I was wondering if you could help me with something." The irony wasn't lost on me. For years I had been the one left standing at the edges of her spotlight, holding the camera, clapping from the crowd, offering a ride, lending a hand. And now here she was. With what? "There's this grad school program in New York. It's competitive. I need to submit a portfolio, but also an essay, a personal statement. I've written a draft, but it's kind of a mess. I thought maybe you could take a look." She handed me a printed copy, 3 pages typed. I scanned the first paragraph. It was full of lofty language, sweeping metaphors and quotes from French artists I doubted she understood. But beneath it, I could tell she was trying to say something real. "Why this program?" I asked. She shrugged. "It's the first time I felt like I could make something that matters. Not just pretty pictures, real commentary." I looked up at her. For once, she wasn't polished. She wasn't posing. "Okay," I said. "Sit down. Let's do it together." We worked for 2 hours. I asked questions, pushed her to clarify. I sliced her metaphors in half and told her to stop quoting dead men and start writing like a living woman. And to my surprise, she didn't get defensive. She listened. When we were done, she leaned back in the chair and stared at the ceiling. "You're really good at this." I shrugged. "I've had practice cutting through noise." She hesitated. "I owe you. And I'm sorry. For a lot of things. I think I just didn't realize how hard you were working. How much were you building?" I didn't say anything at first. I just sat with the weight of her words, the apology I never thought I'd get. The recognition I had long stopped hoping for. "You didn't have to," I said quietly. "Realizing it now doesn't erase the past. But maybe it gives us a place to start." She nodded. Her eyes shimmered, but she blinked them back. Before she left, she turned and said, "You were never invisible, Sal. I was just too wrapped up in myself to see." It wasn't redemption. It wasn't absolution. But it was real. And for the first time in a long time, it felt like maybe our story had more than one chapter left. By the end of the month, we secured our first seed round, $400,000 from 2 angel investors and a small fund that specialized in underrepresented founders. It wasn't Bexley Capital. But it was more than I'd started with, and it was enough. Enough to bring on 2 full-time developers. Enough to move into a proper office space with our lease. Enough to stop worrying if I'd be able to afford the next server bill or stretch ramen for another week. Aiden and I celebrated with cheap tacos and a bottle of kava he'd been saving for 2 years. We sat on folding chairs in our unfinished office, laughing about our broken coffee machine and the IKEA shelf that refused to stand upright. "I keep thinking someone's going to realize we have no idea what we're doing," he said, raising his glass. I smiled. "Good, that means we're doing it right." We launched our public beta a week later. The feedback rolled in, some glowing, some brutal, all useful. We worked 15-hour days, fixed bugs in real time, and responded to every user email personally. Our Slack was a storm of red alerts and green victories. Chloe texted me a photo when she got her acceptance letter to the New York program. She had written her final essay about our Saturday in the office. It was the first time I saw what resilience looked like she'd written. And I saw it in my sister. I read it 3 times before responding, "You earned it. Proud of you." We weren't best friends. Not yet. But we were something better than we had been, honest. Mom called one night too. Out of the blue. "I saw the article," she said. "The one in Tech Tribune. How a waitress became a CEO." There was silence on the line. Then, "We didn't make it easy for you." I didn't say anything. "But you made something remarkable anyway." Sally. I'm sorry. It didn't feel like a victory. It felt like clarity. I know, I said. Thank you. Dad sent a thumbs up emoji the next day. It was the most effort I'd seen from him in a decade. I laughed. It didn't hurt, because by then I wasn't building Node Clock to prove them wrong. I was building it because I knew I was right. And when we hit 10,000 users 3 months later, and my team surprised me with a cake that said undeniable in blue icing, I didn't cry. But I did take a picture, and I sent it to Aunt Vivian. She called 10 minutes later. I told you, she said. Expensive. The day of graduation didn't feel like a victory. Not at first. It felt like breathing through a pinhole. Like the weight of every sleepless night had settled on my spine. The cap itched, the gown was stiff, and my palms wouldn't stop sweating. Not because I was nervous, but because I knew I'd earned this moment more than anyone in that room. And somehow I still felt like I didn't belong. Until they called my name. Valedictorian of the School of Engineering, Sally Quinn. I stepped up. The microphone stood taller than I expected. The auditorium packed with parents, professors, and peers went silent. Even Chloe leaned forward in her seat, no camera this time, just her eyes on me. And there in the front row sat my parents. Dad had one leg crossed over the other, hands clasped like he was still holding some image of control. Mom's smile was polite, practiced, but her fingers gripped the program in her lap like it was the only thing anchoring her. Good. I took a breath and began. I want to tell you a story, I said, my voice steady. It's not about overnight success, or luck, or being naturally gifted. It's about something quieter, harder, something we don't celebrate enough. I let the silence sit. It's about what happens when no one sees you, when the spotlight always lands somewhere else, and you learn to build your fire in the dark. Someone in the back cleared their throat. I kept going. I worked nights, cleaned offices, waited tables. I coded between shifts, learned to survive on 3 hours of sleep and too much caffeine. Not because I wanted to prove anything to anyone, at least not at first. I just wanted to keep going, to matter. A ripple moved through the crowd. I could feel it. A shift. When I started Node Clock, it wasn't with seed funding or angel investors. It was duct tape, diner tips, and determination. Every small win became a brick in the foundation of something bigger. Something that wasn't built for applause but for impact. I paused. Let that word hang. Impact. In engineering, we're taught to solve problems. But sometimes the biggest problem isn't technical. It's emotional. It's being told over and over that someone else's dream is worth more than yours. Now Mom blinked. Once. Twice. Like the words were landing one after another, too fast to catch. And yet we keep building. We keep showing up. We keep designing our way into rooms they said we'd never be invited into. I looked directly at Chloe. Her face was soft. Proud, maybe. Regretful, too. And beside her, my parents, stone still. For every girl who's been called solid, while her sister was called special. For every student who learned resilience before recognition. For everyone who's ever been told you'll figure it out, while someone else got handed the map, I leaned in. You didn't need the map. You are the compass. The applause started slowly, then swelled. It wasn't polite, it wasn't automatic, it was thunderous. But I didn't cry. I just stepped back, nodded once, and walked off the stage with my chin high and my heart quiet. Behind me, the screen faded to white, and in the front row, for the first time in my life, my parents didn't know what to say. After the applause faded and the auditorium emptied, I stood alone in the wings of the stage, cap in hand gown, swaying lightly with the air conditioning. The silence after a standing ovation is unlike any other. It's not quiet, it's full. Full of everything you didn't say and everything they finally heard. Chloe found me first. She didn't say anything at first, just pulled me into a hug. It wasn't the performative kind we'd practiced for family photos. It was solid, still, a kind of apology. That was, she started. True, I said. She nodded. Yeah, true. Then came my parents. They approached slowly, like people stepping into unfamiliar light. My mother was holding the program with my face on it like it was an artifact she didn't know how to decipher. Dad looked tired. Or maybe just older. You didn't tell us? Mom said finally. Her voice was low, like she was trying not to disturb the air around us. You didn't ask, I replied. There it was. The space between us lay bare. Years of assumptions. Years of believing I would just handle it. I always did. Sally, Dad said. His voice cracked, which startled me. We should have seen you. I didn't respond right away. Not out of spite, but because I wanted to choose my words the way I had chosen every step that got me here carefully. You saw what you wanted to see, I said, and ignored what made you uncomfortable. They looked down. For once there was no defense, no justification. We're proud of you, Mom said softly. Good, I said. I worked hard for that. But I didn't work for your pride. I worked for my life. That was the truth. The truth I had finally earned the right to say aloud. I walked past them and out into the courtyard where the sun was setting in that golden, filmic kind of way that makes everything feel like an ending and a beginning at once. Aiden was waiting. He held up 2 iced coffees, one already sweating. Thought you might need this. I took it, sipped, let the cold cut through the heat of everything that had just happened. You okay? He asked. Better than okay, I said. So what's next for the great Sally Quinn? I looked up at the sky, the shade of deepening blue that promises stars if you wait long enough. I don't know, I said. But whatever it is, I choose it. Not because it makes sense to anyone else. Not because it fits into someone else's narrative, but because it's mine. He smiled. Then lead the way. We walked toward the parking lot, the sounds of celebration still echoing faintly behind us. I didn't need them to keep clapping. I had already arrived. And this time I wasn't looking back. Have you ever been underestimated by someone whose opinions seem to define your worth? How did you find the strength to prove them wrong, or more importantly, to prove your value to yourself? Share your story in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe if this journey of overcoming family expectations resonated with you. Remember, sometimes those who believe in you the least can motivate you the most. Not to earn their approval, but to discover just how far beyond their limited vision you can truly soar. Thank you for walking with me. And if no one's told you lately, you're already more than enough. Don't wait to be seen. Become undeniable.